Hello everybody, David Abram, welcome back to my channel as always. And it's been a long time since I've been back, but at long last I've been thinking about this subject for quite a long time. And I think I'm finally ready to really put out my thoughts on this matter. And that subject for today's discussion is the subject of monopolies. Now, before I roll into this, you're probably wondering, well, what does that have to do with MGTOW? What does monopolies have to do with men going their own way? And I want to talk a little bit about monopolies because I want to tie monopolies into the concept of marriage. Because marriage and monopolies, I think, are interchangeable when it comes to discussing the gender relations of the world. Now, we all understand as men going our own way what marriage is. Marriage is a government contract. It was invented by the state, and as always, whenever the state intervenes in something, it's usually backed by violence because the state is an agency of violence with a monopolization on the use of force and the use of violence. And so the same thing is essential for marriage. Marriage, under the state, is backed by violence. And when two get together, men and women, under this contract of marriage, there is some sense of a monopoly held between both parties, or one party over the other. But in this video, I want to make the case that in the case of marriage, monopoly power, as we all know, is granted to women because most of the laws, most of the regulations, and common law marriage and so on and so forth generally favor women over men. And we know this in family court, we know this in divorce courts, which largely favor women over men. So it's fair to say that in marriage, I think, overall, is a monopoly of power granted to women. And since they have this monopoly power, generally speaking, monopoly powers are backed by force, which is why in the free market, there isn't one single company which holds a mass amount of monopoly power. That's why when it comes to the fast food franchises, there's not just Arby's, but there's Wendy's, there's Burger King, there's Mickey D's, there's Hardee's, there's Sonic, I mean, you name it. They're everywhere. Long John Silver's, etc., etc. Same thing goes for insurance companies. So, in marriage, if a man wants to, let's just say, back out after he's already signed the contract, it's not like he could just back out of a choice on his own, like an individual choice. Like maybe perhaps he was going to go into a cellar, but he decides to opt out and maybe instead he'll go hang out in his living room. Well, no. If he decides to opt out of marriage, then he would have to deal with the hands of the state, because the state's intervention is backed by violence. So he could back out of marriage, but at what cost? Generally, he'll have to more likely forfeit all of his marital property. This is the essence of violence, because it's backed by force. If he doesn't forfeit his property, then they come and they take it from him by force, and if he refuses to do any of that, he goes to jail. And more likely in the situation of divorce, the woman gets the house and essentially gets a pension under his expense. So this is a characteristic, I think, of a monopoly. And it's intertwined with women. Women have been granted this monopoly power over men, and it's allowed women to flourish, reaping the benefits from men, such as his house, his income, even his children, and basically leave him scraping 2 pennies together at the bottom of a barrel. And I think it's important to recognize that marriage, especially modern-day marriage, is a monopoly. Even outside of the state's jurisdiction, both of the sexes, essentially, are in a supposable intimate relationship, and being in that intimate relationship, if they step outside of that intimate relationship and commit affairs, which I'll do a future video on about the truth about affairs, this would be seen as an act of cheating. This would be seen as an act of a violation of their mutual agreement via marriage, till death do us part. And again, either one of the parties could file for divorce, and then as usual, the man ends up forfeiting or basically being forced to give up half his possessions. This is the essence of a monopoly. This is the essence of monopoly power granted to women, which is why they have no-fault divorce in place. And statistically, women file more for divorce than men do. And this is a pretty commonly known and pretty well-established phenomenon. And it's no coincidence, because the state's jurisdiction is rigged to favor women over men, because this is, like I said in previous videos, a gynocracy establishment. See, the state is a gynocracy because in the West, at least as far as the states go, the way of government is a democracy. So just take out democracy and replace it with a gynocracy, because gyno means women and democracy, so gynocracy. And it makes sense in a way because 51% of women, at least 51% of women vote. And so, therefore, since women have more or less a say in how politics is run, as well as how the government runs and how the government operates, generally you could expect the gynocracy to be forged over generations upon generations, and as these generations accumulate. Which I think is important to note, and I'll talk more about in a future video, how once women's suffrage was put into place, the government, or should I say the growth of government, skyrocketed, mostly during the 20th century. But as soon as women's suffrage was passed, the expansion of the state really picked up. But nonetheless, I'm digressing. But any blue pill man or even a purple pill man may come to ask me as a MGTOW, and I don't speak for all MGTOWs, but why wouldn't you approve of marriage? Why is marriage such a bad deal for men? Why wouldn't you get married? My answer: it's because I don't give sanction to state violence. I don't give sanction to monopolies which are backed by violence and backed by the use of force, which is marriage. See, the average blue pill man may have the impression I'm saying no to women, whereas in actuality, I'm not really saying no to women. I'm saying no to this gynocracy, this violent, coercive, male-exploiting, male-enslaving, and male-disposing hegemonic system, which is only sustainable through the blood, the sweat, and the valor and disposability of men. I'm saying no thank you. I will not run the illusion that I will become free by begging for freedom. Because imagine being a man and having to beg for freedom. You know, you decide to go out for a night with your buddies at the sports bar, but before you go out, you have to get permission from your gatekeeper, which is your wife. This is an act of gynocentrism. This caters to the demands of women. She may say yes, she may say no. But why accept the premises that your freedom is something for someone to give, or to grant you, or to sell you? That's begging. Just imagine the self-abuse of masculinity, or the embarrassment of masculinity, belittling of masculinity, to beg an estrogen-based life form for freedom. So I, as a MGTOW, and I can't speak for all MGTOWs, but why don't I agree with marriage? Because, number one, I don't give sanction to state violence. I will not participate in state violence, and I will not submit to the violence and the male enslavement and the male exploitation and the male disposability of this gynocracy. Gynocentrism is embedded with the state and are two sides of the same coin. The state and gynocentrism are two sides of the same coin. The state is gynocentrism, and gynocentrism is the state. Selective service, women's suffrage, welfare, which is a single mother state, Obamacare, when women consume more in medical expenses than men. I could go on and on and on and on and on, but I think you see where I'm driving at. The state, and gynocentrism are basically the same coin. I think that's really the biggest point I want to drive home with this video. I don't support marriage, as no MGTOWs do, because in my perspective as a MGTOW, if I did, that would give sanction to this violent, coercive gynocracy to which we're currently under. But my message to all MGTOWs out there, new and old, don't beg for your freedom, don't beg for your scraps, because marriage and MRAs are begging for freedom, running the illusion that I can somehow operate within this gynocracy, which we all know the natures of a gynocracy is to cater to the demands of women and the requests of women at the expense of men, and disposability of men, and the enslavement of men, and the exploitation of men. So MGTOW, and the greatest thing about MGTOW is we don't run the illusion that we can somehow fix the system when the system is designed to operate within the way. The system really doesn't need fixing, it's designed to run this way. And it was designed to run this way from the very beginning. It just wasn't as recognizable as it is today when 51% of women vote, and now, for all we know, we have a current female president, Hillary Clinton, up in the runs as a candidate for presidential office alongside a few others like Bernie Sanders and Donald Trump and so on and so forth. But MRAs run the illusion of I will be free by begging for freedom. I will beg for scraps at the table. MGTOW has walked away from the table. We will not give sanction to the violence of this gynocracy, to the male enslavement and disposability. MGTOW has said, walk away. This is not worth my time. This is not worth my dignity, because I, as a man, as a masculine man, a Zeta male, have too much pride, too much self-respect, too much dignity to beg my political masters and beg my spouse or to beg this gynocracy for freedom. Man is born into a state of freedom. So, my message, as I say again, to all MGTOWs watching, new and old, brothers in arms, live freedom. And even if you can't talk about freedom and talk about releasing the shackles of gynocentrism to your fellow brothers, sometimes the best examples are set by living that example, showing. The old saying of actions speak louder than words. Be fruitful in your life as a MGTOW. Live by example, because this sets the standards for what perhaps a free society of liberated men, the first generation of liberated men. Sometimes words can't describe, but actions, we have to show what that looks like. We have to be better and more confident and more influential than tax-fucking livestock slaves. So, be fruitful and live by example, set the tone. And that, gentlemen, is how we outgrow our slavery. That's how we release the shackles. And that's how we light the candles and pass the torch down the line, to open the gates to the future of freedom for men. Anyway, I'm going to stop here for now. It's been a long time. And let me know what you guys think about in the comments below. Do you agree, disagree, have any other thoughts resonating with my own? If so, please do feel free to elaborate in the comment sections below. Please subscribe. And until the next time, this is David Abrams signing out. Thanks for watching.